Yoruba Nollywood is having a really great time, culturally, generally, but specifically linguistically, right? It's so commonplace to see very casual sexism and misogyny in our shows. Hi. Today we're reviewing Ololade. This is a 6-episode TV series currently streaming on Netflix, and each episode is around a little over 30 minutes long. I think it's listed as a crime drama. Welcome to this review. Ololade is about two friends whom, under separate circumstances, they fall upon sudden wealth. The friends are Shina, who's played by Kunle Idowu, whom we all know as Frank Donga, and he's a school teacher, while Latif, who's played by Femi Adebayo, they tell us that he's a graduate of mechanical engineering, but he's currently working as a mechanic in an auto shop. Both men are probably making minimum wage. Right away, we established that what these guys need the most, at least as far as their outward wants, is they need to quickly rise above their financial circumstances. But what they need is probably, I don't know, to grow a pair, and maybe along with that some ambition. Notably, they're both womanizers. Shino has a wife and a mistress who is also his fellow teacher, while Latif has a serious girlfriend and he's also sleeping with some guys. I'm having weird deja vu right now. Like, I don't know what to say. This is the first time I'm watching this series. This is the first time I'm doing this review.
This is the first time you've had clams. So what's going on?
I don't know, but I feel like I'm doing this again. Like I've done this before and I'm freaking out right now. Okay, rewind. They're both womanizers, these two guys. Shino has a wife and a mistress who is his colleague, like she's a fellow school teacher. And then Latif, he has a serious girlfriend. And then he has a side chick who is his girlfriend's bestie. And then he also has a sugar mommy to boot, who is Iyabo, character played by Mercy Aigbe. The story kicks off with an accidental death, after which the two friends now fall upon this sudden wealth. One apparent, that's the source, is apparent, and the other, the source, is inexplicable. The writers of this show are, and I'm smiling because these are my guys, Salma Saliu, Clean Akwarandu, well, some of them, I don't know all of them, Olukayode Aderibigbe, and this ship is very ably captained and steered by the formidable Lani Aishida. This series is directed by Taj Adeni Joseph and it's created by TNC's Wale Adetula. Guys, I have relationships with these people, a lot of them. In fact, when I saw the lineup of cast and crew, I was like, I'm tired. Why are all of you making stuff? You know, all my people. But you know, this is what we do and we're gonna do it. So let's start. I understand that I'm not Yoruba, I don't speak Yoruba, but Ololade means the wealthy person has arrived, or also the one who has wealth has arrived. So this series, right off, like from even the first episode, I was smiling seeing it unfold because I recognize this on a DNA level, because I'm also an African magic writer, and like I've said, these people are my colleagues. So I'm going to say right away that most of the issues that I took with the writing, I can tell you down to the formula, you know, how it happened, originating from sort of this writer's room, how it's structured, and also how the writing process is structured. Now, that typically works greatly for our 260 episode shows, for the 130 episode shows. Does it translate as well, that process, to a 6-part or 6-episode Netflix series? I guess we'll find out. Thank you for being here, and can I ask you, please, would you just hit that like button, that one, just flirt with that button, interact with it, okay? The number of people watching my reviews who just leave without like liking or sharing or anything, subscribing, commenting, whatever, I appreciate you guys. Let's get straight to it. What worked? Number one, I loved the cast. I like especially how we were introduced to lesser known actors, at least as far as mainstream Nollywood. Some of them are very, very prominent and well-known faces and names in Yoruwood. Is that what it's called? Yoruba Nollywood. People like Mide Martins, Femi Adebayo. But I'm enjoying the crossover that has been happening a lot lately thanks to Netflix, right? So I was excited excited to see a few of these people. I was particularly excited to see Lanre Ayanwale because she's fine as hell, but also she's a really fine actress. The performances, I enjoyed them. I really enjoy Kunle Idowu, that's Frank Donga. I enjoy him in general. I was excited to see him here, albeit in a more subdued role than we're used to seeing him, at least as far as his comedy. I enjoy Mr. Macaroni also on a good day, Dadiwa. But yes, but we've been seeing him a lot more taking on different kinds of, because he is first an actor before a skit maker. That's something we need to remember. So yes, it was good to see these actors and all the others. It was a great cast, I will say that. The next thing I liked most was the humor, guys. The humor in this was just so organic and intrinsic to the story, right? Like some parts, did you guys watch Pam Pam that year? Pam Pam, Yoko Pam Pam, and there was a third one. I don't remember what the third one was called, but I watched those movies over and over. There was a time I actually knew dialogue verbatim. So there were some parts of this that reminded me of Pam Pam. Sort of when they were doing Latif and Shina, his friend, when they were doing the one-up manship after they both got wealthy and they were doing the whole whatever they were doing at the bar. That took me out. These are all the ways in which this show just felt, and that takes me to my next point, which was the naturalistic, like, just feel of this show. It didn't in so many ways, it didn't feel like I was watching a show. It just felt so natural and so organic. So these are things I enjoyed. The picture quality, I thought it was fine. I like how well this show just embraced popular Nollywood tropes, but without the inherent over-the-top like melodrama of our Nollywood like tropes. But the reason I'm using the word embrace is like there was no snobbishness. It was like, this is who we are. You know, it just felt to me like a celebration of that. Like, these are the stories we like to tell. Babalawo story, side chick story, mother-in-law bringing wife story. This, like, let's just do it. This is us, you know. So yeah, I liked the world, the crafting of this world. It had a real small community vibe. Sometimes they did drop it plot-wise though. Like, for such a small community, there were some things that maybe should have been stories that flowed more among people because it was such a close community. But as far as the feel, they nailed the feel of a small community. I liked how realistic the wealth in this story was portrayed. See, I'm tired of Nollywood movies calling, and us African magic shows, we're so guilty of that as well, calling billions and billions of naira or dollars like money that we don't have the budget to show on screen. That's one of the things that I really envy the South African productions for, because when they call these monies, you see it on screen. In our shows, they call the money. So I really liked that. Now on this next point, I don't know if I'm right about this, and please, if I'm wrong, tell me, but it felt to me like I didn't see any evidence of misogyny in this show. It felt like, if anything, the show was in a very light-hearted way critical of those narratives and stereotypes and all of that. So I could be wrong, I don't know, but it's so commonplace to see very casual sexism and misogyny in our shows that to see one that just did not have any evidence of that, in my opinion, it was so refreshing. I like the showcasing, and I would call it documenting, of aspects of our culture that are fast disappearing. Things like, okay, I'm not going to say the use of drums because those are always going to be a part of our culture, but things like Ashwebi, spraying money, that planting canopy and blocking road with canopy to do events. I don't know if they block the road. Even the food, if there's anything I love to see, is food as a character. You've probably heard me say this before. I probably said it in Jagun Jagun maybe. So that's something I really like to see, and I like to see when films, even the dedicating the house, little things like that. You know, sometimes I grieve how we grew up with like baby naming ceremony, but it feels to me like now the church has usurped that. It's no longer cultural, where it was a family event with elders pour libation, whatever it is. Now it's only like the church events like dedication or whatever. It's fine. But I like to see aspects of our culture being documented in this way. Let me just say documented. The second wife drama, I liked it to an extent, only to an extent, because, and mostly nostalgia, because it took me all the way. Did you guys ever read that book, The Unknown Tomorrow? Oh my God. I think it was a Ghanaian book, but I couldn't even really tell except for the names. That whole second wife drama just really gave me that The Unknown Tomorrow vibes. I enjoyed the themes that were being tackled, not just the themes that were tackled, but the non-didactic way in which they were tackled. I mean, we had here just so many, but a few: tribalism, infantilism of women, our culture of acceptance around sudden wealth and criminality, even a criticism of religion. There were just so many things, you know, but in a way that did not feel like I was being preached at, and I really appreciate enjoyed that. One of the first things that stood out to me is how we had this beautiful show coming to Netflix in a local or indigenous language that was not an epic. I really liked that, you know, and I think that Yoruba Nollywood is having a really great time. I'm just curious to see how films from other tribes and other like Nigerian cultures fare culturally, generally, but specifically linguistically, right? I'd like to see how we fare. There's a whole argument about how Nollywood Yoruba is able to do this in a way that other like cultures are not able, just for reasons of structural reasons, but also familiarity. It's just a whole big conversation, but I'm curious to see what other cultures can do in the way that Yoruba Nollywood is like making strides in this way. Celebrate it. Now, as far as a story, I enjoyed the premise. Let me just leave that as a complete sentence. I like the way the story flowed in a way that was so easy to follow. I think that the writers were written pretty consistently. You could tell almost like in a way that you feel like you know the characters and what they're likely to do in any situation, because I think characterization was pretty well done. The dialogue and the conversations were so authentic. They just felt so realistic, and also in the way that very nice balance and mix of Yoruba and then sometimes English, you know, because we talk like that. We actually weave through language, you know, whether we're speaking clean English and pidgin, and we don't even think before, you know, we mix it up like that. So that was so well done. I like how I was going to say this story showcased gaslighting. I think when I was tweeting about it, I said gaslighting, but when I thought about it later, and I'm speaking specifically about Lateef and Risi, and oh god, that guy drove me insane with the things he was doing to her. So I remember thinking gaslighting, but then when I thought about it later, I was like, okay, this is one of those words that is just bandied on social media. That's not gaslighting. That's more like just classic manipulation. Gaslighting is if like he's trying to change her reality and make her feel like she's crazy, but that was not that's not really what happened, because let's start with the fact that Risi herself was not thinking. She was written as pretty dumb. So you have to be thinking in a certain direction, and someone is trying to convince you that you're wrong and you're crazy for it to be gaslighting. In at least that's how I understand it. I like how this movie poked fun at us as a people. There was just this subtle exploration of human character, values and complexities of human nature, you know, especially us Nigerians. I mean, do you know what? I really want to watch this show with some of my friends here in America, especially my white friends, because I think it'll be fun. I can imagine having to explain to them that yes, it's possible that a mom would just bring a wife and come and dash the man in the house with his wife. Yes, it's possible for people to just get rich, wealthy overnight and no one is really asking any questions. Yes, it's possible for somebody themselves to get wealthy in that way and attribute it to a miracle. Like just all these crazy things that are so common to us in Nigeria, but I don't think we acknowledge how absolutely unhinged we are as a people, and that's something to sometimes despair about, sometimes to just laugh about. All right, now that I've said all the things that do you see how much I've gushed? Because yes, I really enjoyed watching this as it unfolded, especially the first 2 episodes, and I know that by now you've all heard that episode 3 is where things kind of took a turn. So let's get there. Let me start with the fact that the lighting was not the best. There was this weird contrasting of light and shadow in some scenes, but just in general, I think the lighting could have been better. There were no standout performances. In general, the performances were good. They worked, but was there one standout performance that I'll be like, oh my god, this person surprised me, or they did something incredible that I don't know, maybe did the writing actually give room for anyone to be standout in that way? I don't think so, but I'm just going to leave it at no standout performances. I felt that the plot was a bit safe, if that makes sense, and I think I'll explain some more. It did leave some questions unanswered, and I'll also get there. I had a real feeling that events were imposed on the story, and that's something I always feel when things feel like they're just flowing organically and letting the story dictate to you what it is happening, versus when it feels like the writers decide that this is when you can see the hand of the writer heavy on a story like that. I'm not crazy about that, and I felt that here in many instances. So in some instances it didn't feel organic. Example, why did Lateef not just move away? This grievous thing has happened. He has to first of all be traumatized and also be scared, and he has all this money. There's literally no reason for him to stay on here in this community. Why did he stay? I know the answer. Yes, we needed invited him for story, right? But can we create an explanation? Like, can we say something to justify his staying on here? For Shina's character, Frank Donga, how does money get into your account and it's not flagged? I mean by the bank. I don't mean him. I'm fully on board with his explanation to himself. I've actually heard this really incredible story of a woman who ended up with somebody else's child and just took it as her own miracle, that something that God had done for her, something, and actually went to the church and testified about it. So these are not things that we have to struggle to imagine, that it can happen. But on the bank side, right, just, and then what Safeguards did, because Ihotu, right, she took a risk. Fine, she paid money into somebody's account because she wanted to divert funds to hide them for some time. But what safeguards did she have to ensure that? What if he had turned around and went and reported the money because most honest people would do that. Was there something she does not know him. She had only that 5-second interaction with him at the bank. So she doesn't know him enough to say, oh, he's not somebody that's going to go to the authorities and turn the money in. I think this show could have done with fewer subplots. I think there was quite a bit too much going on. I don't think that character relationships were very well fleshed out. They weren't fully fleshed out. For instance, the show insists that Lateef and Shina were like friends or best friends or whatever, but how many scenes did they share? Did we really see any friendship? The only thing I remember as far as like them being together is the scene I'd already mentioned after they both like had money and then they were showing off in the bar, and then when Shina bought his house and Lateef came there. But I didn't see them, you know what I mean, have that friendship dynamic because there was way too much going on in their personal lives that just did not interact. Choosing to make two friends suddenly wealthy, the story did not really do anything with that. How would the spine of this story have changed if only one or the other had gotten wealthy? First of all, what was the spine of this story? I'm not clear. But what was the intersect of both of them falling on this sudden wealth? I didn't see those stories interact. Mama Perpetua, her character was established to a point where she would be a real player in the events that followed Lade's death, because she was set up as like this eavesdropper, her nose in everybody's business. But then they didn't utilize her beyond just the point of her being a gossip. But I think that they could have used her character to sort of heighten the conflict. The pacing of this show, oh my god, after the first 2 episodes, most of all the gushing I did, like I wrote 2 pages of notes or so for the first 2 episodes. After that, my pen was just kind of hovering, like, am I going to have to take it all back? Newsflash, no, I'm not taking it all back, but I've got to say that the pace really slackened after the first 2 episodes, which is ironic because it's in the 3rd episode that the conflict started to escalate with the arrival of Ihotu. So it's not for want of plot, right? Like that was a major plot event, but somehow scenes just started to drag, the plot dragged as well. Even the stakes in the conflict just did not, I don't know enough about that, but in general there was like no real feeling of danger, And then for the characters, our main characters Lateef and Shina, there was no journey of change for them. For the main characters, so when then we get to the end and we see these changes that our characters have undergone, there's like no real correlation, and the changes are kind of unrelated to their core character and the ensuing conflicts that we follow throughout the story. The changes at the end, there's a disconnect there. The way Shina went back to his wife, he didn't like his wife before. I know that the story kind of made it look as though all these problems started because the mother brought a wife and the other, his colleague, came in as well, but that's not the problem because he hated the wife before even anything started. He did not like her. So when then at the end he wants his wife back, it just did not track. The cliffhanger or plot twist in the final scene in the end, it worked as shock value, but that's pretty much it. It would have been nice to have just build up to that, would have been nice, right? Because if we had established that Shina himself even cared. So now what we have, this guy who he has a child, apparently not his. He has a colleague, mistress, whoever, who is also pregnant. Okay, she said she wasn't pregnant. Fine. And we have the second wife that they brought in who also got pregnant, not his. So these are all things that are happening around him. But how do these things connect to his core? And speaking of his core, I didn't feel like I knew him at all. I think that's the main thing. I knew all the events happening around him, but I did not feel like I knew Shina at all. I could say I knew Lateef to an extent. The directing, I feel like it derailed a bit after also that second episode. The staging got a bit haphazard. it's nice to see beautiful things happening in episode 1 and 2, and we want to see those beautiful things continue happening up to episode 6. I wasn't crazy about Debbie Felix as the villain. I like her in general, but not in this. She felt out of place, and she just didn't have that physical presence, and I won't say courage. She tried. See, don't let me go off on a whole rant about short women, and how I had this theory once. I was telling a friend about how if you think of all the women who they have this position of this or they did that, they are all like tall women with imposing figures. I don't know whether that's true. Please, I haven't researched this, but it's just a feeling, that there's something about just being a little woman, and I'm a little woman, so I'm dissing myself.
Short girls are adorable. If you are a short girl and you're watching this video, don't worry, you are beautiful.
But she just did not have that physical presence. Let me just say that. So she didn't really work for me. She felt like she was playing villain the way we play dress up as kids. The extras in this show, we have an extras problem. It's either the extras are too obvious, they are looking into the camera and they are doing extras things, or as in this case, they're trying as much as possible to disappear and be invisible, like they're not there. So in scenes where you expect extras to react, because the fact that you're an extra does not make you deaf and dumb, and all of a sudden you can't hear things that are happening in front of you. So in the salon, we had that. In the school, we had that. When Shino and his mistress were talking, students were just passing and they were really like saying scandalous things. But in that particular instance, a part of me wondered if that was sort of a way of saying they are very flagrant about the cheating. But again, that doesn't track with the fact that this is a small community and it would have gotten to his wife. She's somebody who owns a salon. A salon is a gossip hive, right? Or a gossip hub. So if he's carrying on very openly with his mistress and the wife has a salon in a small community, in fact, all of Lagos is a small community. Let's start there. So in general, let me just say that I like how intentional this show was, and also I could see the intention. I liked the tone. I think it was nice to see this because it was just a different kind of show or film. It had a different feel. It was a different speed. And I really liked all of that. Just people trying different things, and they succeeded to a large extent to give us something different that felt good to watch. So I would just say it was a good, fun, low stakes watch. However, I don't think the conflicts stayed consistent or coherent. I did not feel any real anxiety for the characters. There wasn't a clear and consistent narrative arc. So I'm very happy for TNC. They have been consistent over the years. They have been, and I really, really think that they deserve this platform. And I hope that this show gets approved for another season. They definitely left a cliffhanger there. So I want to believe that there's an intention. And there's so many things that did not wrap here. So I would like to believe that those are threads that were left that they can pick up in a second season. Now, something that I had to mull over, and I've had to mull over this, but especially for this particular show, is this Netflix's style of releasing several episodes at a time, and how it forces us to consume shows like one extended movie. And for the writers, how it informs how they write and how they structure like the narrative arcs for these shows, because now we're watching these as an extended. I watched this almost in one sitting, and we watch a lot of things like this. We just binge a lot of things like it's one movie. So when something is being created like specifically, or if you already know that Netflix is going to be the platform, how does that inform how you structure your narrative arc? That's just something I was mulling over. All right, guys, that's it for Ololade. Thank you so much for tuning in. Tell me what you think about the show itself, the series, however you call it, and this review in the comments. And I really appreciate your time here. Please don't forget, if you haven't at this point, please would you share with your friends, your family, and also comment. I want to hear what you have to say. Okay, that was a lot. Do it again. All right, guys, that's it for Ololade. So talk to me. First of all, thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to like. If you haven't liked already, please leave a comment. Just talk to me about the show and also about this review, what you thought, and also please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't, and share. I appreciate you guys. And what do I always say? You have the right to an incredible viewing experience, so never settled.